And Pat Havman is a multimillionaire, super successful person. You know, when he was young, though, he shared with me that he was he was labeled with a learning disability. It was a speech deficiency, and he put in a bunch of special classes. And he really struggled as a teenager to kind of find a special purpose. He graduated in college with a sociology degree and a 2.6 GPA. Yeah, so he says, yeah, he's not very smart. He said it on the podcast again. I consider him very smart. At the time for success, what was kind of your key to success? What do you think that made you as successful as you were?
Think for me, really, other than say hard work, and that's kind of cliche, was being naive. I've always been very, I'll call it simple, right? I'm not that smart, right? I'm not that, intelligent or, when compared to some of the people that I know, right? To a lot of people that I know, it's just that I'm naive enough to believe stuff and just move forward with it where other people might get analysis paralysis. And when I really became successful in real estate is when I became a listing agent instead of a buyer agent. I took a course and the guy's like, you don't want to work buyers anymore, you want to just work listings, and you need to sit in the corner and just call 100 people a day and say, do you want to sell your house? So I just did it because he told me to do it, so I figured he was right, and he was right. I tripled my business that year or whatever. And
You just did it. You took the first step. You had an idea like, listen, I'm gonna go into this knowing that you could pivot once you got in, which is a
Mhm.
big part of any venture, anything you're doing, right? Is like, I'm gonna go and figure this out. I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna go, I have an idea of what I want to do. And but when I get into it, I know that even if it doesn't go maybe as planned, I can figure it out.
It's
Right.
kind of like, yeah, exactly, Garrett. It's a faith in yourself and a belief in yourself. And I use the word naivety, which is the same thing, right? It's
Yeah.
belief that no matter what happens, you're going to pivot, you're going to figure it out, it's going to be okay. And I think 99% of people don't have that belief. Like they really, really don't believe that they could have $1 million. They really don't believe that they could, you know, um, own 500, multifamily doors. They just don't believe it, so it doesn't come true.
Or they think they have to know every single component of it before they get
Right.
into it. Right. And
Whereas
I
they
think
just
that,
started one day thinking, I
yeah,
don't need to know anything. I could just do it.
yeah,
And, you know,
I could start and then I'll figure it out as we go. And you know what, I will say, even for me, it wasn't always like that. I think I had to build that muscle a little bit to be able to get into it and just start to fail and be like, oh, I'm okay. I failed. I fell down, but I'm still on the track. I think it was when I diverted from the track that it started to get like, I was like, you know what, I'm done with this completely. It's not gonna work. It never would. I screwed up. That's when I got into trouble personally. Um, but sticking to that, this going back to kind of like going deep into something, you just started going deep and then kept with it. And then all of a sudden you start to reach success. And it sounds like you've had some of that.
I can teach someone to analyze a little bit more, but I can't teach someone to take action. You know, and sometimes he's like, oh my gosh, this guy just got into this deal, didn't even think about it. And it turned out okay. But man, you could have done a little bit more, maybe a little more analysis on it and prevented maybe this mistake and that mistake. But on the other hand, the analysis paralysis is so strong that getting someone who's caught up in that to take action is almost impossible. And it sounds like someone sat you down, Pat, and says you can sell 4,000 houses. All you got to do is make 100 calls a day, and you're like, okay, okay, and you just believed them, and then you just did it. Like
yeah.
that's amazing. That makes you a very coachable person. And I think the main lesson is for people is to just do whatever expert tells you without thinking too much about it, and you just do it. Over the years, how has your definition of success changed?
I think that the answer to that question really it boils down to relationships, right? I mean, did you are you finishing are you successful with relationships? Do you have good relationships with your business partners? Do you have good relationships with your children? Do you have good relationships with, your wife, your mom, your dad, your siblings, everybody around you? Because I think if you boiled it down to one thing, money would might be in the top five, but it wouldn't be the number one. Number one would obviously be relationship. What good is all the money in the world if you've been, if everybody hates you? So
So has that focus changed then over time? Because it sounds like it was maybe more ego driven, and you were so focused on success, and maybe now it's something else is important to you. You said mentioned relationships for sure.
Time, I think. I think time is probably the most important, because um, time is the most valuable. We're not guaranteed, anything. We could be tapped on the shoulder at any time, and as Michael, having a heart attack recently. I mean, it's you just don't know.
Let's maybe break it up into two parts, because a lot of people do, yes, relationships, that's great, Pat, but really I want to be successful. I want to make a lot of money. So what are some of the key lessons?
Build on a success up, not from the ground up. And in the world of real estate agents, it would be an example of an agent that sells a house in a neighborhood and has their sign in the neighborhood. They are so much more apt to list the next door neighbor's house or a house across the street or any house in the neighborhood than they are in another neighborhood in another zip code. They're starting all over again over there. Where here they could say, hey, I'm a neighborhood expert. You probably saw my sign. It's so much easier, right? Proportionally easier. Same thing. If you sell a house to a cop, it's going to be proportionately easier for you to sell a house to the next cop, because you could say, I sold Officer Smithkins a house. You probably know him. He works Vice. Oh, yeah, I know him. He's a good dude. Yeah. Boom, you're in, right? But you go to try to sell a house to a lawyer or another profession, you got to start all over again.
I love that, Garrett. I know you want to say something. I love that because of two things. Number one is you have to recognize your wins, and a lot of people don't recognize their wins. They're like, oh, I haven't done a deal yet. And they don't recognize all the steps and wins they've had already on their journey. They don't recognize it. And number two, a lot of people keep starting over. Like you said, oh, I don't like that market. I'm going to start on a new market. Well, why? What was wrong with the other market? Oh, I don't have a deal yet. Well, maybe you haven't worked for long enough, right? So really building on your success, and this is why I talk about the law of the first deal all the time, which means if you do your first deal, the second and third one just kind of come to you almost automatically. And it's because you're building on your success. You have one investor says, oh yes, if you find me a deal like this, I'll be your investor. And you're like, oh my gosh, and now I can find a second investor much easier than that first investor. And people sometimes fail to forget that. So I love that that aspect of build on it.
You could literally rent a room out in your house and then have the Superman cape that says real estate investor, right? Airbnb expert, right? Whatever you want to say. And that's all you need to move you forward,
Yeah, but I've had similar experiences. I mean, I always say, you're one relationship away from a whole new level that you even think was possible. Right. And I remember I was like, when I first got started with apartment buildings, I could barely wrap my head around raising $250,000 to buy $1 million deal. Right. And then I get to this networking event, I met this guy, we hit it off, we go for lunch. Turns out he was a developer. He just sold his company. And he was looking for, the reason he was there is he was looking to see who we can invest with, what kind of projects there are. But the minimum amount of money he wanted to invest per project was $1 million. And I'm like, immediately in that moment, my mind shifted like a 180. I'm like, 250, that's ridiculous. I need to go out and find a $5 million project so this guy will invest with me. Like, just one relationship completely threw out my entire perspective. And it's not the only time that's happened to me, and it sounds like it's happened to you quite a bit as well. Want to hear the full podcast? Then just point to your favorite podcast app and search for Apartment Building Investing, and you'll find me.